Stop, can you hear us?
And so here comes.
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Well, here comes out. Upright?
Taking nourishment.
I did actually, yes, right before I walked in here. A Twix bar and 2 shots of espresso. Sounds healthy. I mean, that's what the medications are for, right? Yeah. You've got more in and out. You'll tell. Yeah. No?
No.
Lay one down. Okay. There you go. Yeah, thank you.
I'm getting used to the running nonstop. I haven't been home one night this week. Or last week.
I might end up having to work Friday.
Okay. Do you know if Ben's coming on Friday?
I don't know.
I need to specifically find out. I would really, really like a chief officer to be there.
I'm going to try.
Dude, I say that, Dave's gonna be there. I know he's not a chief officer, but he's still a senior member. So I feel like between him,
Tomorrow I will know.
the line officers, I think we'll be okay. So I don't have to have you there. Knowing that Dave's gonna be there makes a huge difference, just because of his tenure in the department. Doug, myself, Watson, I think that would be fine. I would just prefer somebody who. You know what I'm trying to say, without saying it.
What's new?
I have no idea when ready to go. Oh, yep, absolutely.
Nada. Good, how are you?
Fishing trip, huh?
No, I missed it. Hey, on. Good. What's that?
That new little repair job.
Ah,
The strap working outside.
it's dedicated to run it at the commission. Important. Should be open on Friday morning.
Victory. Yeah. Before Christmas.
Huge
Man.
play, 5 lanes wide, lots of auto accidents.
It's not my first year, but it makes getting to places a lot easier.
That's pretty strange coming down there and looking at that and see how wide that is after all those years.
It's strange.
I'm surprised nobody's
On the
walked.
north side of 283, and there's 2 lanes next to it.
Other than
Like some drunk drivers flying down.
Other than like, they've got enough barricades that kind of just corrals you, but I'm surprised no one's drunkenly crossed.
Yeah, we haven't had an accident.
Well,
There's even dumbass drivers not paying
Yeah,
attention.
I came for fuel last Sunday and the Tahoe was coming back. And all of a sudden,
Yeah.
I stopped at the light changed green, and all of a sudden someone comes from the construction up through. Like, they blew the light, number one. Number two, I wasn't expecting anyone like to be coming. The road's closed. Well, so I don't know what they were doing down there, but
Yeah, I think the problem now is because manpower, and
Yeah.
being able to control the traffic.
They were just out for a tour.
Was they went around the barricades at Harrisburg, drove Holman Road, and like they just zigzagged through all the barricades.
The barricades on Harrisburg are not easy to get around.
the way they had the barricades, I think they went through Zephyr's parking lot and around.
No.
Because there's that lower entrance on Zephyr. And I think that's the way they got through it, because they had pipe across it.
All right, well, let's hear a couple more minutes. Is Scott going in or?
Yeah, Scott and Ed are both on Zoom.
Oh, I see Scott's all right.
Was it?
I just hate the only one facing this way.
We'll move over.
I'll be
Like, I'm not afraid of COVID, Josh. Like,
I'm vaccinated.
move over.
I was facing backwards. I'm like,
I know it's kind of weird.
You don't.
So Craig's not coming, you can sit there.
I always have a choice.
I know.
I already had COVID. They can give it to you.
Waiting on someone?
No, we're right, I'm just waiting for the clock to tick.
7:02.
Well, that one, I was watching that one up there.
Oh.
Okay, I'll call to order the Hempfield Area Fire Services Commission Board of Directors meeting for April 2021 to order. We'll begin with a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome, everyone, and thank you for attending. Our first action tonight will be to review and approve the March 16th, 2021 meeting minutes. I do call Diane's attention to one small typo. Gonna correct that. Anybody else have anything? Hearing none, we'll entertain a motion for approval.
So moved.
All right, we have a second.
Second.
Mark and Josh, any questions? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion so carried. I'm gonna kind of reverse order here a little bit. John, I'll let you present your report.
All right, what I provided is an update from the last meeting, and essentially several items, agenda things that we're working on, current goals. We're continuing discussions, as we just reported on earlier, for the joint agency duty officer role. And last night we met, was our first chiefs meeting. We got together and discussed it. We're going to continue those meetings as they have been in the past. And the idea is to get the chiefs together and discuss and kind of roundtable some of these ideas. There's a lot of good discussion. Everyone has a copy of the actual protocol, if you will, the SOP. And essentially, they're going to come up with, any concerns whatsoever, and then we're going to get back and discuss it. One of the concerns that was expressed last night was the schedule and the 2-week time frame that was on the current schedule, and that was just a suggestion. It really wasn't anything cast in stone. So it's something that we're going to have to try to work out and see what works for us individually. It doesn't, again, that was just something that was a sample, but nonetheless, it was something that was a concern and something we need to address. The other part of this is twofold. Number one, it's the actual, sharing of or working together as a duty officer. But the other part is it's going to involve incident management training. And the chief officers, for the most part, had incident management training, but we're also going to work on working at the junior officer level. Because one of the things that we feel we need to do is actually work with some of our junior officers, because we have to train them. We have to, as we always refer to, we have to train our young. And that's how we start out. So we're going to do the chief officers as well, like a review, but then also bring in our junior officers and begin to work with them as well, so that they have an understanding of the system and what it is we're trying to do and what we're trying to accomplish. So everyone's on the same page. And then that way, if they aspire, they move up through the ranks, they aspire to be a higher officer, they are already in the system, they already understand what we're doing. Any questions about that? Work in progress, a lot of good discussion, a lot of good Q&A last night. The next part of the agenda is apparatus replacement. And Diane, if you could put that up there. The apparatus replacement, I should put it up here on the screen, is what I developed is a 35-year plan for apparatus replacement. It's just a draft. And it's really just a snapshot of what the current fleet is, and then working on a system to replace them. Now, as we're waiting, one of the things that we're looking at is listed on here. It's based on an assumption. Again, this is an assumption, folks. It's based on the assumption the individual departments would provide a 10% down payment and the municipality would fund the remaining portion. The single greatest expenses is apparatus, and it's not getting any cheaper. So this was developed to look at and get numbers in front of you so that we have an idea of what it would cost to go through a systematic replacement of apparatus. What's on the schedule you'll see on the board essentially is the financing that I looked at in comparison to some of the loans that are out there. when Hempfield went for their engine and they were going through the spec and the bidding process, all that kind of stuff for their engine that they have currently spec'd out, they were looking at a finance option where they were gonna look at the state 2% as well as then the loan for the remaining amount. I looked at and discussed with several manufacturers and some outside agencies, some outside finance agencies. I discussed what is essentially known as a lease purchase option for fire apparatus. A lot of larger vehicles, fleet vehicles, public works vehicles, they do a similar thing. And with the lease purchase program, essentially after a period of however many years, whatever the loan is set up for, you have the option of purchasing the apparatus for $1. And then it officially becomes yours, or, depending on what you want to do, it can be traded in on a newer vehicle depending on the time frame. What I selected here was an option for 5-year finance. Typically, what we look at on the outset, pumpers, engines, as referred to them, we look at a 15-year replacement. Aerial devices, the ladder trucks, 20 years, and that's at the outset. That's when we really seriously need to make sure that they're kind of replaced in that time frame. The financing was 5 years for engines or pumpers, and then a 10-year for an aerial device. The numbers I actually overshot a little bit. I did some calculations and but when I actually got the financing numbers, I was kind of over on my numbers, which is okay. At least this is what we're looking at. And I can't really foretell what an apparatus is going to cost truly in 2057. These are the best estimate that we can come up with based on a certain percentage over every year, what they consider to be an increase. When I did the math on that, essentially figuring the old loan, the loan for the Hempfield piece, it was coming in at $884,558.75, and that's all finance charges, that's the down payment and everything. With the lease purchase option as they have available currently today, if we go through the manufacturer peers, it comes out to be $790,839. So that's a savings of at least, of course, you have to add a dollar on there because you have to purchase it if you want. But that's a savings of $93,719.75, and that's for one apparatus. And when you're looking at replacing several, that can be a cost savings over a period of years, especially if you're looking at a cycle of replacing them. So a lease purchase is an option. People don't even think of leasing and I don't own it, I don't this and this. Essentially with the rates that they have, especially for municipalities, right now is favorable. It's favorable. The only concern that we've heard, and Josh is aware of this, I was notified by Pierce Manufacturing, which was the apparatus that they were looking at going with. And they're looking at an increase in what they're calling, and they're just labeling it commodities price increase. And essentially that's the cost of materials for them all across the board. They're not 100% sure what that cost increase is going to be, but it's going to be several % increase to the price of the apparatus. And they just have to pass that along to the consumer. So that's, when we talk about this, we look at the timeliness of when we talk about speccing one until we get to it, and Josh is aware, and you can comment if you want. It really is, when you start the process, it's one of those things where if it's right and we got it, it's like you want to get your ducks in a row and get everything and get the thing ordered. Once it's ordered, then it's essentially things become locked in. And then the price can do whatever it wants to do, but we're locked into that price. Every time we delay the process, we're subject to any type of increases anywhere down the line that they might put out there. So it wasn't a sales thing or whatever. It's not like he's trying to rush us to get an apparatus. It's truly, he just wanted to give us a heads up and say, hey, this is coming down the pipe by June 1st. Couldn't give us a figure. He's guesstimating 1% to 2%. On $700,000, that can be a few pennies. So, it's one of those things that we have to consider and look at what we're doing in the direction that we're going to go with this.
So, I'm sorry.
Yes, go ahead.
Are we looking to purchase something between now and June 1st? Is that,
I think it's a discussion we have to have as to how, moving forward, how we want to proceed with actually, again, the process that we're going to use, if we're going to look at a schedule. And again, I wanted to get these numbers out in front of everybody, because I mean, it's like sticker shock, you do everything. But at the end of the day, when you look at what you're replacing over a period of years, the schedule, this is a draft, it's not cast in stone. There's a couple things that I'll point out immediately. One that's not on there is the tanker from Hempfield, okay, so that's not on there. That's simply because that might be a candidate for a reach asset.
What's that?
Basically, you take the body off and you put a new vehicle underneath it. So like the body is good, but the underneath part, the engine, the cab goes away. And it's kind of you see it more in EMS when you do fire service, I mean, it actually is done. But essentially, if you have a good body, like if the back part is good, if it's in good shape, not rusted out, and you don't need a lot of modifications, it's a better option and tends to be a less expensive option than speccing out and purchasing a brand new. So that's one of those options. The other one is not on there currently, and I didn't get a chance to talk to Chief Schenberger about their aerial device is not listed on here. It doesn't mean we're going to forget about it, that we're excluding anything. It's just not on there because I think they have or you guys have an agreement, or there was some kind of agreement as to when that would be replaced.
2020, not before 2024.
So yeah, it would be one of those that would have to be like cycled in the schedule.
And what was that one? I'm sorry.
Our ladder truck, East
Oh,
Petersburg's ladder truck.
I thought you said arrow.
Aerial, it's an
Oh.
aerial device, a ladder truck. Yep.
Sorry.
No, it's okay.
Any questions about that?
Diane, would we be able to get this put on the OneDrive?
Yeah, so we didn't put it on the OneDrive because it is very much a working draft right now. And John just wanted to kind of show it, but if the chairman wants it on the OneDrive, we can put it on the OneDrive.
Well,
The
if
problem
it's
is
not
if we put
really,
it on now,
if it's
then
still a
it
working
changes.
process and this and that, maybe we need to give a little bit more time until we share it. I know, some of our council members would be interested in seeing it when it's a little more refined.
Yeah, it's the biggest thing, and if you look at it, I apologize for the numbers, but you're looking at an average. If we would replace, sans the tanker and the other aerial device, over a 35-year period, again, we can't truly guesstimate what the cost of apparatus is going to be. It's $11,775,000, okay? That's replacing everything on a cycle. Okay, that's basically following like an NFPA type thing. But based on the lease purchase type options, you're looking at an overall averaged out is $316,351 a year on average for that period. Now, again, that's a commitment and you're paying that out, but what you're getting in the end is you're getting new apparatus based on an NFPA schedule. It also relieves a major concern for chief officers because again, that is one of their single greatest expenses. So if they know that that's coming down the pike and that those types of things are going to happen, we talk about longevity for officers, taking that stress off their plate, I think, is monumental.
Do you feel that you have some more work you would like to do in that for chair?
I'd like to refine some of the prices. I would really like to wait and see. I don't want to wait till June, but if they have a better idea what the increase from Pierce is going to be. It's close, it's a guesstimate. Like I said, I can't predict what it's going to be, but I wanted everyone to see what the numbers are going to be. And kind of get that in their mind as to what it's going to cost to replace the fleet.
I'm sure you guys would be interested in seeing it at some point. To be able to share with your,
The chief officers we shared this, we actually showed it to them last night to see what it is. There's always we look at it and say, what's being replaced when? This is solely just laid out based on the year of the vehicle. It might have to be switched depending on the condition of one or the other. So we might have to.
I understand that it's kind of a work in progress. And I certainly don't have any problem sharing it. If you think it's a little premature now, and you need to do a little more, tweaking and fine tuning of it, you want to wait another month or whatever to post it out there. I'm not opposed to that.
If we're talking about it now, I think it would be nice to share it with the whole group. You know, we're at least talking about it now.
No, I understood, but I meant put it on the OneDrive, they could be shared
Right.
with everyone. So.
Yeah, and I don't have a problem, as long as they, and you know, certainly, I mean, if we put it out there, you just absolutely ask questions, if you wonder what, like, why is this here, what is this, that type of stuff. You know, you can
It's
certainly,
draft, right? Yeah,
yes.
so it's not
Legit.
right.
Yeah, it's not final, and like I said, what we have on here, like I said, I overshot some of these when I did but
Oh, sure.
it depends on what Pierce comes out with when they say by June 1, what that's gonna turn into. So, I mean, it might be close, I might have covered enough to cover that, but I don't really know.
Well, you know, I don't have a problem with sharing it. It needs to be shared at some point, you know, maybe just when you do it, just qualify it in some, you know, as the first initial draft, and, you know, you're speaking here about the price increases and this, that, and the other. So,
John, I have a question for you.
Good.
Question for you. So this is, the replacement schedule is just one component of the whole package. All the fire departments have to get involved and on board with the schedule. And then it has to come back to the municipalities to be able to fund it. So it is a beginning of the process, but the process has some stages in it.
And then each and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm thinking here, but at the end of the day, this is a recommendation schedule. And then each individual municipality or fire department makes the final decision of what equipment to purchase. Correct?
Yeah, and they like Hempfield, they spec'd out their vehicle, what they're looking for specifically and what they're replacing. And this just takes into account what they're looking for and they're spec'ing out. The other part of it is, again, looking at the fleet as a whole, how many vehicles are gonna be maintained, how many reserve are we gonna have, what's it gonna take to provide coverage for the entire, you know, for both municipalities, as well as, again, keeping in mind the ISO rating and what we need to have for those types of
But I
things.
guess, and I get that and understand, but I guess where I'm kind of going with this is we, the commission, can approve this schedule or replacement or make a recommendation on it. But at the end of the day, final decision on the purchase of each individual piece of equipment is going to be with that individual fire company and or the municipality. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, and it essentially, as Cindy said, I mean, this is all, I mean, the price tag, this is based on an assumption. It's just an assumption, is 10% down from each of the individual departments, and then the remainder will be through the municipalities. If that's not something that can be approved, then we have to come up with another option, another, you know, get additional financing or how that's done.
It's just, East Hempfield's program is different than East Pete's program. So that's, I guess, is the one difference, you know, different program there. So, but that's fine. I mean, if you need to tweak it, fine tune a little bit, you know, hopefully, you know, here in the next few days or week, that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. Yeah. go ahead.
I would just like, if this is going to be posted and put out there, that there's some notation put on there regarding the missing aerial device. I don't want to come, you know, for funding in 3 years and someone pulls us out and goes, look, we're not replacing it. So I just, there needs to be something on there that was not included, not because it's not being replaced or, but.
And you can put a notation about that. So it's all.
Yeah, because like I said, that would be more of a, that would be a candidate more for a retro, you know, like a re-chassis, probably.
Because I can't see, is anything pertaining to East Petersburg and Morristown on this list or no? Yes. Okay, I just can't see.
It is.
Okay.
It is, yeah, they're all in there with the exception of those two.
It's just a little difficult to see it.
Yeah.
And I apologize.
You see the details on it.
You're fine. Oh, looky there.
The next thing that's on the agenda, or my list is again, is staffing. All across the board, and it'll go in 3, we'll cover in the 4. We have staffing and the volunteer staff. Is the fact that numbers, as we know, are dwindling. You know, from Morristown the whole way through, we don't have as many members coming to the door, don't have as many people coming in to be firefighters, line firefighters. And that's a concern from a Roarstown perspective. There's a possibility those that are live-ins we may, from what I understood is there may be less in 2022 than what there are in 2021. And there are no current prospects. They had one that they thought might come to fruition that never showed up or they haven't heard anything more from. From there, what I did is I contacted the Pennsylvania Fire and Emergency Services Institute to discuss with their president, from a Pennsylvania perspective, live-in programs and what they're seeing on a state level. And unfortunately, what they're seeing is exactly what we're seeing in Morristown. They're just not even getting the live-ins. The only area of the state that's truly doing well is the far east, over towards Philadelphia, and the west right now, western PA. And it's typically tied to what you would see here is it's a college or university type town where they're attracting some folks. It's not in gangbusters, so they're not getting like gobs of members, but they're at least getting some. The rest of them, they've tried multiple, everything for the similar things, tuition reimbursement, to, whatever, they've tried it. And it's not really, they're just not getting the numbers. They're getting a few, and then they're not staying for very long. So they might have like longevity, 3-4 years for some of them. So it's not like a fantastic picture, even from a living perspective. Tying into number 4, recruitment and retention, LoSAP programs, different things like that to attract members and keep them. From a longevity perspective, there are programs out there. LoSAP is a length of service program that actually is in some ways based on the members' attendance at different things or activities throughout the years. You can actually give them something and it goes into an account in a fund that's invested. And then at the retirement age or 65, they can get a lump sum payout of the money for their time as they, dedicated as a volunteer. It is an option. It all depends on what you want to do. Each program is set up kind of individually to determine what you want that to be, how much, and all those types of things. So that has to all be predetermined, as well as a schedule of points. It's based on a point system where, depending on what you do, if you're a chief officer, you get so many points. If you're on a committee, you get so many points. Whatever your responsibility is, running incident calls, you get so many points. And then you have to acquire so many points each year in order to remain within the system. While I was having this meeting, there was another gentleman that was there that I met with on recruitment. And from a live-in perspective, which I thought was a kind of an unusual, I really wasn't sure where they were going with it, but they said about, have you spoken to a social worker? And I really wasn't sure what that was. Yeah, no, that's kind of was my look. However, what it is they tie in with the military and folks that are discharged from the military that may or may not have a place or may not be set on where they're going to live, not really sure what they want to do, where they want to go yet, but they kind of need a place to start, someplace to, kind of help them out a little bit. And, if they have an MOS, if they have any fire service background, any of that in fire service, whatever, they can provide those names to contact to see if they have any interest in that. So it might be a segue into looking at a possibility for live-in type members. So all those, again, the LoSAP program, I'm looking at trying to refine that a little bit. The bottom line is what's it going to cost? Because there is obviously a cost involved, and what's that going to cost to get us into a system, and then what kind of system would we like to have if we go down that road? Other than that, the departments have been working together on training, which has been fantastic. They acquired structures that Morristown got on Centerville Road. The other departments have been taking advantage of that as well. So it gives them a little bit of, more realistic training. So they're going to continue that until the demolition. The training was received by all the departments on an update of the hospital. Mostly aerial views of what the hospital, or the construction project, the hospital looks like, to kind of keep people apprised of that. Any questions?
I've had some thoughts about this in that I think we've done great starts in the tuition reimbursement, the tax deferments and things. I think to get young folks interested to develop their feeling of ownership in the company, that esprit de corps and things can be just fostered so much. We might be able, even in the township newsletter, to have a new fire service recruit of the month. And we could also have a 10-year service veteran shown in the newsletter. We could do things like that, I mean, t-shirts and more t-shirts and hats, anything we can do that supports and makes it fun and meaningful to belong to the fire company. Those are some thoughts that I've had on this after seeing John's statement about the Rohrstown live-in and the concerns there.
Okay. I think we'll just go around here. Josh, you have anything, any questions or any comments? Billy?
Yeah, I have something. T-shirts, something in the mailer, up to $300 tax incentive. You know, the tuition reimbursement, that's what the only decent program out there. And even that's fairly limited. Those aren't bringing in volunteers. They may retain a couple, but the reality of it is that stuff isn't working. I know it makes people feel good, but the reality of it is the volunteer fire service is dying rapidly. We're not alone. Hempfield and East Pete are bleeding the same. Okay, we just have a living program, which is really bad. So it's really, you know, we can try as much recruitment, retention, fun programs that you can think of, but we're beyond that. Chief, you know that. I'm not telling you anything you haven't already been aware of, but yeah, t-shirts aren't saving us. So,
What do you suggest?
Manheim Township spent $1 million trying to recruit new firefighters, and what did they get? Nothing. Nothing. Okay, so the reality of it is we have to look beyond that. And what is beyond that? Unfortunately, that's hiring firefighters. People to drive the fire trucks, people to ride the fire trucks. That's not day side or night side or weekend. That's all time. 365, 24/7. That's where we're at. You know, Rohrstown alone on a regular basis, even with spending $100,000 this year for staffing, still has to put apparatus out of service because there aren't people to ride the fire trucks. The commitment is greater than it ever was. You have to have the same training as the career guy. You know, it just, the demands are greater, the call volumes are greater. That's not going away. You know, so the reality of it is you're gonna have to hire people. I know no one likes that because that's money. Well, that's reality. So, I mean, we can, hey, let's buy some t-shirts, but I'm telling you, that's not gonna fix anything.
Can I make a comment?
That's tax. That's where money comes from. And really, if you don't like that, that's fine. We'll just call the neighbor's fire company and the neighbor's fire company and the neighbor's fire company. But if you think they're not in the same boat, then you really aren't looking at the neighbors. You know, the other side of Columbia Avenue, that is not going well either. So.
Can I comment here?
Yeah.
Sure.
So first of all, John, I want to thank you for the presentation you gave us. I thought you did a good job and it's a great start and it's the direction that we need to head. Billy, I hear you about the t-shirts and the comments you're making there about that. But I think everybody, and including you on this, and I'm going to ask you on this, to take a look at the bigger picture. We're taking a big first step here. We're trying to get to where we need to be. We can't fully fund and turn 3 departments into paid departments and expect that to happen overnight.
And
So,
that was never my point. I'm not saying, hey, volleys are done, career's in. That's not the point. I understand that. Going all career would be a massive investment. You know, no one just turns it off and goes all career. But
so
understanding that that is on the horizon. Yes, East Hempfield Township has made a big step. They hired a fire chief. That's massive. And I applaud that. But, you know, Chief Cotmeyer, you haven't been here very long. It's blatantly obvious where this is going or where the tax go.
well, all right, well, let's crawl, walk, and then run.
John asked for
And
my opinion. I gave my opinion.
Sure. And Billy, I appreciate that. I'm not discrediting your opinion. I'm just saying there's been a lot of good that's happened just in the last month. And I don't think we should lose sight of that. And I hear your frustration. I understand where you're coming from. But again, the number one priority of the commission is to preserve the volunteer departments for as long as possible. So, I mean, that's got to be part of the discussion. That's got to be the biggest part of the discussion. I hear where you're at with these things, and it may be that John comes back to us and you guys all come back to us and all three departments come back to us. And we end up right where you're at. But I think John laid out some good things tonight. And I just think we should just, you know, focus on the positive right now on where we're going and what we're doing. It's going to be real easy to get frustrated and to get sidetracked on different things as we move forward. But the good news is we are moving forward. And that's what I have to say.
There is another thought that I've had in this. I'm not certain of the validity of it, but I believe it has some degree of credence. And that is, as we go from volunteer to paid, we will lose some of those who are dedicated to volunteer service and what that means to them. So we need to be very broad-minded and consider everything as we move into these decisions.
Okay, thanks, guys. Corey, do you have anything to share?
I just have one thing on the idea for recruitment. Good thing that we could try to do is look at a joint effort with the Lancaster County CTC, because they do a protective services program every school year that it's open to any high school senior in the county. They do a max of about 60 students, but even they are struggling because I was talking to one of the instructors for next school year. They only have 41 kids enrolled so far. Usually by this time, they're filled with 60 kids with a waiting list of close to 20. So we could always look at maybe doing a joint effort to help them get students going there. Because I went through the program my senior year, and if it wasn't for that, I probably wouldn't have half the certs I do now. Because you spend your entire senior year doing police, fire, EMS classes, all that, and they come out with the same certifications that we all went to classes for in our own time. And we could advertise it that you go to this program, get all your certs, and then that could maybe potentially help Roarstown's live-in program, saying if you want to go to college in the area. Because that's the big thing I feel like with a lot of the fire departments nowadays, like Billy hit on, we have to get the same training as all these other career departments. And for someone that works a 9-to-5 job, or someone that has a family, or even someone that's going to college, that's hard to get those classes in your free time on top of doing all that stuff. But if you can spend an entire school year getting all your basic fire classes out of the way, they can come join our departments, go through the in-house department training, and it could be a quicker process, and they won't be as discouraged that they're taking forever to get through training because they don't have the time.
Can you share that information with John?
Yeah, I can.
Yeah, one of the objectives with Diane's contacts is actually get out, because she's very familiar with the program, is to get out to multiple programs and even go out into just, you know, and get into the school district and talk about it. You know, the military does it well. You know, again, they get out there, they're out there. For those that are undecided, don't really know what they want to do, kind of undeclared, don't know if they want to go to college, whatever, they do a good job. I mean, sometimes that's how they recruit people and they get people to come in the military. It's not an end all be all. But again, it's an area where we can at least get out there. And when you're out in public and people see it, they understand what you do, you know, it does have some benefit.
Okay. Thanks, Corey. Mark? Okay, Josh?
Do we, excuse me, as a commission, should we make a stance or a motion to support John's apparatus plan? This way, it goes back to municipalities saying we support it, get them to buy into it. And the only reason I'm saying that is for planning sakes on the fire side. Yes, I've got one rig designed. I've got a second engine on that list coming up. Now I need to figure out where that next 10,000 down payment's coming from. As of right now, I don't know where that next down payment's ever going to come from if I don't start planning today. So if that's going to be a plan, that will help us as the fire companies truly be able to start planning those down payments. Or else I don't know when that comes along, if we don't start planning today on the fire side with our budgets, when you'll ever have that income. Since COVID, we've taken a $50,000 loss on our fund drive. So I don't know where I'm going to pull that money from if we don't start planning and preparing now.
Okay, I understand, I'm not opposed to doing that, but I don't think we have all the information right now to be able to do that. We don't, when John shared that, we give it, maybe in another month or two, one of the meetings, we can talk about that a little bit further and do that. So I'm not, opposed to that, so. Okay, any other thoughts? Amber? Tammy? Aaron? Randy?
Well, I like the idea of, to the future, figuring out what the costs are gonna be, because you can almost think of them as fixed costs, and it's gonna allow you guys to figure out your budget, and what your costs are gonna be for years in the future. So this is definitely something that needs to be done. That's all.
Nothing done that, something further work on the golden shoes, so I guess I'm gonna go a little direction. I had asked John earlier today if in his time being here, if he's had like any interesting things to discover, an aha moment, or something that surprised him or something like that, so. John?
The biggest thing from, and again, you hear this from me over and over again, I just, from all of you, I commend everybody for, the working relationship that is kind of developed here, and the cooperation, everyone's attitudes, opinions, Billy, you're passionate about it, and I don't need to hear the answer that I want to hear. I want to hear what you think, and I appreciate that. And I appreciate everyone's honesty. Last night at the Chiefs meeting, we were talking about the apparatus and replacement. There were some, I wouldn't say forceful, but they were very much wanted to express their opinions, and I appreciate that. I don't want you to tell me what I want to hear. I want to hear what you want to hear, what you want to say, what you have to say. So I appreciate that, and just the continued support for me in this position. So that's commendable.
Okay, thanks. Cindy?
Just commenting on the schedule again, it has to be not cast in stone, it has to be a roadmap. And it really calls back to the municipalities, because both Karen and I are looking at budgets and planning ahead, just like Josh has to plan for his down payment. So there has to be flexibility in that schedule to adjust to whatever the municipality need to go through as well, because they have roads and other things that they need to address. So just keep in mind flexibility.
Okay. Good comment, so, Diane? Ed, anything else? Scott, anything else on your end?
Oh, I'm sorry. You were talking to me. No, I don't have anything else. Thank you.
All right.
I am awake. I'm awake.
Okay. Scott?
I think so.
Okay. All right. I guess the next thing is we did have a conflict with the election next week. As far as, my opinion was, I would be okay to skipping next month's meeting and reconvening in June. I don't know how anybody else feels about that. Doesn't seem like we have anything really pressing that we need to address within the next month. How's everyone feel about that? seem like we're all in agreement on that, to, skip May's meeting and reconvene in June.
If something comes up, we can always call a special meeting.
Well, I think I'm getting some head nods, yes, that you're in agreement with that.
That's
so.
fine, yes.
So I'll take that as, we'll skip next month's meeting,
So that would make our next commission meeting Tuesday, June 15th.
Okay, it's something I, want to bring up. It's a little bit of old news, but it's something I've been asked to bring up, but so I'll do that now. And John, I'm just going to say with all due respect and courtesy to you, this doesn't really have anything to do, about you, the job, your. Excuse me?
Nice try. Nice try.
So, not only being the chair of this commission in the East Petersburg Rep and the president of the East Petersburg Council, I've been asked to share that there's some lingering concerns by some of the council members on how the hiring process went. And they feel like they're looking for some assurances that if and when, many years from now, that it would go, that process would go again, that it would be a more smooth transitional, process. In my mind, I believe Scott did a fine job of acknowledging what had happened and, the reasonings behind it. My thoughts are that I'm very hopeful that John's going to be around for many years to come. And if and when the need comes to look at a new chief fire official, those will be on the board at that time, if they would so choose to revisit the hiring process at that time and make any adjustment necessary that would be done at that time. And I did say, I think, Tammy, you had some of your own concerns. That is my opinion on it. When I say, I just think I mentioned before, I think we need to be forward thinking and forward looking. And there's a great opportunity here for this commission to do some great things and achievements and set an example for others to follow. So.
I'm gonna correct, you said about that I had concerns. I don't have concerns. Council had the concerns and wanted you to bring up on how and what processes were gonna be put down in place so it doesn't happen again. That's what they want.
All right, well, I thought you shared similar concerns.
Through what council is asking.
Well, like I said, I thought you had similar concerns. So that, I conveyed that, what their concerns were, and give you my opinion of how I would foresee it happening in the future. If anybody else would like to share, comment on that, I just really see we have an agreement in place that has some verbiage in it about how the process is to go. And I would think in the future it would probably be followed again. And at that time, those people who are on the commission would like to make adjustments to that process, to that agreement, that can be done at that time. So. That's my opinion on it. So, let's see, we have a couple attendees tonight, and you guys have any public comment?
Yeah, I do. Josh Roberts, a taxpayer resident in East Petersburg Borough.
Let me give you a microphone.
Thank you. I just want to thank Chief from Lordstown for saying what needs to be said. And I have many years' experience with the fire department, EMS, and it's very obvious it's going this way that we are going to need the help. And I commend the volunteers that we have. They do an outstanding job. And I think that the Fire Service Commission needs to be looking forward a lot quicker as it relates to having career people. But I also think that they need to start looking as far as how we're going to fund this. And if there needs to be a tax put in place, then that's a serious consideration that we're gonna have to take up. I truly think that in year 2021, that it's beyond reprehensible that these volunteers are out here selling chicken, passing food on the street just to get a couple dollars to keep running when they have to have over 130 hours of training just to be qualified to ride a fire truck. So I think that they have lives. I think that we could be doing better for them if we want to truly keep the volunteers. So I want to thank the chief of Board Scout for bringing that up.
You can just stick it in the stand there, Josh, thank you.
Thanks, John. Thanks for your comments. So, we've kind of gone through our agenda tonight. If nobody else has anything they'd like to share, entertain a motion for adjournment.
John, I just have one thing really quick,
Okay.
if I may. I think we would be remiss if we did not make note of the fact that our East Petersburg alternate member has signed on with our military and will be joining up and shipping out in August as an Army combat medic. So East Petersburg Fire Company will have to replace him, but not until September. So Corey, congratulations on following in your grandfather's legacy.
Good. Congratulations for you. So, that being said, Diane, thanks for bringing that up. Here again is we'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
So moved.
Okay. All right, I don't know if you want to give that to Diane, I'll let you make that choice.
I gave it to Ed and put Josh as the second.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion so carried. Thanks, everybody. See you in
No, I want to say one thing about
It's really a carryover. East Hempfield Township is out of the apparatus